Well, hello and welcome to another episode of a Woven Podcast. This is where we talk about the intersection of bodies, culture, and transformation. My name is Sarah Newberry, and I am a somatic coach, a barefoot massage body worker, and a mother circle facilitator. And I am joined today by my friend Laura, who is also a mother circle facilitator, amongst other things, but that's where we met. So, Laura, I'd love for you to introduce yourself and tell whoever's listening a little bit about you.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm Laura Ridenour, and this is Jupiter, who has decided that she has to be on my shoulder. I am a resilience coach, a sociologist, and a somatic experiencing practitioner. I also am a consultant to nonprofits. I do sort of like fractional fundraising and support for executive directors in fundraising. And I am in Bellingham, Washington, on the land of the Coast Salish people, the Lummi tribe, and the Nooksack tribe, the Lummi Nation, I should say. Yeah, and we have other things in common.
We do, yeah.
Yeah, mind body coaching, right? And you're also in somatic experiencing school. So,
Sort of.
okay, cool.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and
Um,
yeah,
Also, welcome Jupiter.
yeah, thanks. She'll probably be back again.
Yeah, that's cool. So one of the questions that you asked me, which I thought might be kind of fun to explore on the podcast, is why I created the podcast. And I figure that once we start talking about that, we can move into a lot of other things. And if we get to it, we can talk about somatics and mother circle. And if we don't, we don't. We can always do it again.
Yeah, sounds
Um,
good.
but one of the reasons I started this podcast was because I was in relationship with my own version of the yin and the yang.
Mm,
And I had realized that the yang version of me was kind of driving the bus all the time.
mm,
Um, Through trauma, through capitalism, through all the things, through trying to figure out how to be a mother. And becoming a mother was one of the things that sort of asked me to slow down and pause and really look at the relationship that I had with myself.
mm.
And I noticed that, I've been a body worker for a very long time, like 15 years or something like that. So I have been in that realm for a very long time. It was very much what people associated me with. I am also a continuing education provider, so I teach massage therapists how to massage after they move through their core curriculum. And I just felt sort of pigeonholed. I sort of felt like everyone only knew me about like massage and rubbing bodies. And like as I started to uncover more parts of myself, I realized that there was so much more to actually um there's just so much more to like our life experience than stress and joy. Like that it just seemed like people kind of moved between these things like I'm either stressed out or I'm not stressed. And granted, like that is what people come to massage for, or
Mhm.
like I'm in pain or I'm not in pain. And I just as I started to explore things for myself, I started to see that like actually so much of culture affects body work, so much of like our interpersonal relationship affects body work and vice versa. Like body work affects all those things too. So um, I started to really like incorporate these things for myself. And I was like, wait a second, my clients are only getting like a small portion of me and a small portion of like my knowledge base and what I know. And what I also learned was that when people would come out of my massage room, which is like right over there, and they would sit on this little chase lounge, the conversations that we would have were sometimes more powerful than the massage itself. And
Mm.
people would mention that. They'd be like, this, yes, the massage is amazing, great, wonderful, whatever. But like the conversation is also part of the therapy. And a lot of it was me bringing in things I was learning via somatics for my own trauma healing, my own like just culture work, if you will, and helping people understand how their experience is more than just like this body in this time, in this space, that it's actually much bigger than that. So, again, it was like the talking piece that was like, well, how do I create this talking piece that's like available to more people? And then, ba-boom, there's a podcast. And
Ah,
so,
okay.
so it's been interesting because I was thinking about it today, and I think there's been, whenever I first got started, my friend Rachel was really on a couple, like the first 3 or 4 episodes. And then since then, I've had a new guest every time. And it's just been really cool to see like how the conversation all intersects to everything, either like what you have to share and like what I have to share. There's always some sort of like, wow, there's something really rich here. So I just feel like, and I listen to a lot of podcasts. I love like hearing people's stories and hearing people speak from like a more conversationalist space rather than
Yeah.
like facts, you know? Or even like I do listen to some audiobooks too, but there's something about like someone talking about their own story that's just
Hmm.
like really moving to me. Um, and so I
Yeah.
guess I hope to kind of bring that to people too. It's been kind of a not a side project, but something that I do whenever I can. And I mean, I've been putting out episodes every 2 weeks, so I feel like we're doing something. We're doing something here.
Yeah, that's great. Well
Yeah.
done.
Yeah.
I have imagined having a podcast, and I'm really glad to be here talking with you and having the experience that I've imagined
Yeah.
for a while. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was the other thing too. I was on a couple of other people's podcasts and I was like,
Hmm.
this was really just such a great way to connect with people that feels different than like your average marketing, which I feel like
Yeah.
marketing is changing really quickly right now. And um, I kind of like adopted into social media marketing really young, like probably 2015. I was really hot into it. And now it like feels sort of like soul crushing to even think about opening Instagram to make a marketing post.
Uh-huh. Yeah. There's so
And
many different things at play. Yeah.
like what is that about? You know what I mean? I
Mm.
feel like the question I've been asking myself is like, is it me or is it the world? Like,
Oh, yeah.
and I've heard a lot of my other small business friends saying like kind of the same thing. And so it makes me think it's not just me, but
No, I think, I mean, as a sociologist, I've been tracking social media and the way that we interact with it and how it informs our identities and also informs how we communicate in person for a really long time. And then I also used to have a marketing role. Promoting local food, but a behavior based social marketing in terms of like the original social marketing in terms of behavior change based marketing. And I think that there's a lot like around the time that you're talking about was the rise of like around 2015 was the rise of like real intensification of everybody having to have their individual brand and a lot of that promotion to younger people. So we have a whole population of people who grew up with the idea that you have to have your own brand and like brand identity and what it means to be online is very different than, and Instagram at that time was still very photo based and there were no videos. And so, but the last couple of years in particular, I think that culturally, globally, there's, the last 10 years has been this intensification where the majority of people are actually have smartphones. And then with the addition of AI, there's a lack of trust. And then there's also the stuff that comes up around our identities of like, who am I and how do people know me? And the idea of like belonging on top of all of the other things that we might be trying to do, like reach new audiences and get people interested in our work. So so much is up. But I think the most significant change in the last year in particular has been the lack of trust, the experience of I don't know if I can trust that this what I'm seeing is real or what I'm seeing is actually a real human. That part we could have many conversations about. I think is really important in terms of being able to like notice in your body what you trust, and then having mistrustful experiences like where you might have enjoyed going online, and a lot of people get a little dopamine hit. It has a lot of value in your like taking a break and taking a look at social media. And I really, I think that the work around the nervous system and somatics and your own sense of self is even more important now. Or like your sense of coherence as you go into those spaces and then come back into reality of like what's actually here. And I just was in a place where a whole bunch of stuff was coming at me, war and genocide and desire to take action. It's something you really identify with and something that you don't trust, like all at once, is a very intense experience for any one human, let alone the thousands of us that are having those experiences, maybe multiple times a day if that's your regular habit.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think we both have young kids, and I think that it's interesting to hear their experience of the internet and AI and that sense of like mistrust and staying in your body. There's a lot there where it's like, I mean, as a somatic person, I'm always trying to teach my kids about noticing when they're in their body and when they're not.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think that's becoming part of their vernacular too, where they talk about AI slop and like,
Yeah.
well, that was a cool video, but you can't like believe everything you see on the internet. That was a
Mm-hmm.
conversation between my 12-year-old and my 9-year-old the other day, where they were both talking about a video they watched, and it was like the older one was telling the younger one, like, not
Yeah.
everything you see is real. And
Yeah.
my 9-year-old being like, what? Like, of course it's real. It was like a video. And it's like, oh no.
Yeah. I mean, what sociology has always tracked like what we perceive to be real is actually like our brain doesn't have a way to actually know without other levels of discernment, without being taught, but naturally we everything we perceive is real. And so there's like early on in research around video games and how it impacts people, and this is like 20 years ago. There was this part about people saying that essentially the research did impact your attention. The amount of how quickly something flashes to change is now super intensified. If you count seconds between screenshots, or on a video on YouTube or even a movie or a television show, they're timing it so that they keep your attention as much as possible. So it goes down and down and down, right? But also the research around video games, early research showed that what people perceive online does have an impact of them. What they're doing on a screen does impact some level of your response in the real world. And at that time, there was, anyway, that's a whole tangent. But, like now it's even, I think, more intensified because adults are having a hard time navigating all of these decisions around whether, what you're going to do when you pick up your phone or what you're going to see. And then we're expecting children and who don't have prefrontal cortexes, who do not have the ability to make those types of decisions to like, here you try to figure it out. Like we're handing them these incredible tools, before they're actually able to manage those
Mhm.
things. Yeah. And I'd say
Yeah.
as my kiddo's 12, the majority of our attention at home is about whether or not he's going to get to play a video game or watch YouTube.
Yeah.
And it pisses me off. I
Yeah.
just, it's makes me so mad because it's like, there's so many other things I want to do with you, and there's so many
Yeah.
other things that we want to give our attention to. Um, yeah. And unfortunately, the only way that I can gain any sort of traction around that conversation is to take it away completely. I just have to be like, nope, it's just not
Yeah.
going to happen.
Even all the way over here in the middle of the country, we're having it is the same conversation too. And
Yeah.
to your point, and I just sort of want to highlight this again, is like even the adults are struggling with this. So like how can we even guide children if we're struggling ourselves, you know?
And I really wonder, so like my kid has he has a therapist who specializes in his particular brain, and apparently that therapist's opinion is that it's as long as you're doing it with them, that it's okay. And I'm like, yeah, but how many people, that is not happening these days. Like, I
Yes,
think that some of that guidance around like what's okay for kids is coming from people who don't have the context of what is actually happening in the houses. And I'm like, it does that still apply if I also am addicted to the internet? If I also am
right.
staying up past my bedtime because I want to watch the next reel and I got totally sucked in? Like, no, I don't actually think that the adults in the room can actually manage
You
that.
know, we we had that same advice by a therapist when my son, who's 12, was maybe like 6 or 7. And she was like, yeah, can you play Minecraft with him? And I was like, number one, I don't want to. I just don't.
Exactly, exactly.
And number two, I have
That's how I
four,
feel too. I'm like,
I
no.
have, yeah, right. And number two, I have 4 children.
Yeah,
Like, when am I going to, like, it's just not realistic.
yeah,
Like I don't know. I mean, I try to create and carve out time for each one of my kids individually every day, whether it's like having a eye contact conversation or we go do an event together or something. But I am not going to play video games with 4 children. It's not
yeah.
going to happen because I got to cook dinner.
Right, same, right. Yeah, and that's the reality is like that's how most of us are getting by is like,
Yeah.
I've had to draw a really clear line that that's not what I'm going to do, and it takes a fair amount of energy, right? It's a fair amount of like activation energy to hold that line and be like, okay, I have to make a different choice to engage with you so that you can get on a path of doing something else and something else will grab your attention and I'm gonna go make dinner.
Hmm.
Like
Hmm.
it's extra effort on my part.
Well, and I also think to talk about activation energy is like there is someone of a certain power with a certain letters behind their name telling you that you should play with them, play
Oh
online,
yeah. Hmm.
and that holds an activation too, where like, can you stay in your own body enough to be like, no? And can you stay in your own body long enough to be like, and we have to connect in a different way?
Yeah, the level of like discernment about from day to day about what your
Yeah.
kids' experience is
Yeah.
is a lot. Yeah, and then I also all of a sudden feel self-conscious saying that because so many parents are feel judged if we talk at all about their decisions around,
Oh,
their
totally.
kids. So I'm like, I'm not judging other people.
No, no.
But I tend to be a person that sees the outcome of those types of decisions really clearly. And maybe partially because I grew up in a generation that where it was very common for kids to just be like, just go outside and play and mostly be ignored and not, there was no like parenting going on. Nobody was helping shape my life in a significant way. Um, so I'm maybe like extra attuned to like, no, it's my job to, it is actually my job to be your parent and help shape your life. And so I don't know, I feel a certain amount of strength from that. And it's certainly like part of like how becoming a mother shifted my sense of self and ability of like, oh, no, this is my job. This is a part of my whole life experience that, I otherwise wouldn't get to experience if I didn't have this child. So I've kind of taken it on as something I take kind of seriously. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I also feel like, isn't that, I'm gonna totally mess up the words here, but like, I feel like that's the millennial, like, gentle parenting trope or whatever. That's like, we care so much and we're doing, but we're also like exhausted because we're doing so much. And then our parents are like, what's the big deal?
Uh-huh, right, because their experience was so different. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I say that as like my parents are dead. So like my parents are not saying any of that to me, but I hear other people's saying
Yeah.
that about what their parents say.
Yeah.
So I hope that's what people are ex experiencing and conveying. Or I maybe I don't hope that, but you know what I mean.
I have a question for you. I
Yeah.
because both of us are connected through the work of Kimberly Ann Johnson, and she talks a lot about the story of recognizing the need to parent in a certain way with her child in terms of like um, being in the mother jaguar role and having a little bit more of that activation energy where there was more of like her actual physical power with her child. And I recently was reminded of that and have decided that we're just gonna wrestle more. It's like, oh, he was pulling away from me a fair bit, and as is natural, totally, but we didn't have any other points of connection except for this tension that was going on around screens. And so I was like, hey, let's wrestle more. And now that we sort of started that, he's asking for it all the time and he's more affectionate and more connected. And I haven't had a chance to like unpack that fully with Kimberly exactly what she was trying to say about, that story of her child having maybe more, you know, more decision making power than she actually could contain as a child, and that it was the story was like basically if she didn't kind of help her child understand that she needed to get along in her role, that the rest of her life was going to be harder. Anyway, I'm curious if you've explored any of that with your kids. And
Well, I only am like vaguely remembering the story that Kimberly shares about the physical contact but
yeah,
containment Jaguar stuff. So
yeah,
I'm kind of just going based on my own experience here whenever I talk about this, but my 12-year-old is a fighter. He is a wrestler and he does like MMA and kickboxing. Okay. So part of it is he scares me a little bit at this point. He's like the same height as me,
yeah.
but he and I have been wrestling since he was very little. And there have been times where he is obviously struggling with some kind of emotion and maybe he can't like talk about it. He doesn't know.
Hmm.
So he would ask for I'm trying to think if I how much I want to share about this, but he would ask for a certain game that we would play where it was basically like I would hold him down and hold him tight and he would try to get out of it.
Yeah.
And then it would become like this wrestling thing. And it was very like sensory seeking. And he's the oldest and the littler kids, he would sometimes it's the only way he knows how to connect with anybody is like physical contact. And it's a lot of like
Yeah.
aggressive physical contact.
Hmm.
So we've had to have a lot of conversations about like, how do you connect with people other than this?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah,
Because
that's really, yeah,
I can
different than
do
mine,
this
but
with
yeah.
you. I can
Yeah.
do this with you, but like not forever because you kind of scare me a little bit because
Yeah.
he's so big at this
Yeah.
point. And like this is a skill you have to learn.
Yes, exactly.
You know, you have to learn how to connect with people outside of like smacking them.
Exactly. I mean, I think, I don't know, that just sort of brings me back to the like, what is it that we're here to do? Not just as mothers, but also like as humans on the planet at this time, in the sense of we need to be calling people in, including our children, including other mothers, including ourselves, around the like, what real skills do we actually need now? When so much is changing or when so much of our attention has been absorbed by other interests, essentially trying to sell you something or convince you that you need to be a different person than you actually are. Like how to be in community and how to gain these like the humaning skills, but also real hard skills. Like I think we're in a, at least in the Pacific Northwest, I'm tracking that we're in kind of an age of reskilling, of like adults being like, oh, well, you know, I was learning how to like actually do some woodworking, or I'm learning how to farm, or I'm learning how to do real tangible things that are essentially, you know, hobbies, but also the value of like having a whole human experience where you can create things and make more value than just going to work or just being a parent. Like these very narrow areas that things have gotten kind of parsed into. Anyway,
Yeah. Well, in efforts not to completely romanticize the past, right? Because that's easy to do.
yeah,
Because well, and I think it's easy to romanticize any time that doesn't exist right now, you
yeah,
know?
true, yeah,
But I remember that my grandma made quilts because she enjoyed making quilts. And she
right.
made quilts like all the flippin' time.
To do things because you enjoy it.
And I really feel like so many of my peers, people in my same age group, we don't have hobbies. It's like
Hmm.
social media, drinking at a bar. That's not really what I do, but or like restaurants, like they're foodies or whatever. And I just find it to be a little bit more rare to find people who actually have
Hmm.
interests
Hmm.
that involve creating for the sake of creating.
Yeah. 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 I'm hoping that there's a bit of resurgence. I'm kind of tracking that there's also kind of a resurgence of things that were in the zeitgeist in the 1970s. Like,
Ooh.
you know, in the sense of like applied technology, like appropriate size technology for your home would be the same thing of like building a solar panel or having, you know, passive solar housing. The things that you can create within your sphere of influence essentially is what was going on in the counterculture of the 1970s as an outcome of 1960s. I say that in part because I literally lived in a counterculture commune, so I was tracking it pretty clearly. Um, yeah, you know, people being like, well, the most valuable thing that you can do is grow your own food. So, you know, my goal is to find a community to go farm with. Like, that's a very back to the land sort of thing, or making your own quilt, or doing embroidery, or, you know, making radical art that is, you know, expressive of how we want to push back against dominant culture. All of that was definitely going on. I see that happening a lot.
Hmm.
I
Yeah,
mean,
I
it's
do
not
too.
mainstream, but yeah.
Yeah. We my family and I just got 4 chickens over the weekend.
Uh-huh, see?
And yeah, and my friend was like, "Why are you doing this?" And I was like, the common answer is the eggs, right? Like we want to
Right.
have chickens for the eggs. But
Yeah.
as I really sat with myself for a little bit, I was like, "Why am I doing this?" And essentially what came from this inquiry was like, I want my children to have a tangible experience with animals outside of like pets.
I was just having the same thought.
Like I
Yeah.
don't want to sound all like
No,
paranoid, but it's like
totally.
if
Yeah.
there's ever a time where my kids need to support themselves in some way, grow their own food or whatever, I want them to at least have somewhere in the back of their mind, remember
Hmm.
that one time when we had chickens?
Right.
Or remember
Exactly.
that time whenever I mean, we plant a lot of gardens and we have for a long time. I grew up very much close to the land, so it's very, it was for me, it was like, of course we have a garden. Like,
Yeah.
why wouldn't we have a garden, you know? And so I want them to have their hands in things that will at least give them something in the future if it's ever
Hmm.
needed, you
Hmm.
know?
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And there's this sense of like as we have very clear less control over what's happening, politically and culturally in our country. That's part of like, okay, well, what is within our sphere of like the hyper local? Both we can have more influence over hyperlocal politics for sure, but also just like your connection to land and the animals and the food that you eat and your neighbors. Those are all things that, help us get by when we're living under fascism. Like
Yeah.
that, I think is, yeah, some of that desire and the truth of what helps.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. I wonder if we'll ever fully turn to like victory gardens or that sort of thing, of like the recognition of like that's really what we need right now. 'Cause there's, yeah.
I mean, I can get very emotional about the planet. And I do know that like having gardens, being with the earth is
Hmm.
better, is a better like version of life than living in like a plastic box, you know?
For sure. For sure.
So
Yeah,
I feel like nothing bad could come from this like kind
exactly.
of gardening type life.
It is such a good antidote to the part where like you don't know what's real, right? Of like if you're going online and you're actually like, I'm actually not sure if something that I see is might have a negative impact on me or is having a negative impact on my kid and I don't know about it, like all of those things, but also um, it's so human to want those connections and to want to get our hands into things. Yeah. It
So
feels so good.
I'm curious your thoughts on this. If we have a hard time understanding what is real and everything that we perceive is real, you know, especially as a body worker, I put my body on people's bodies, like my hands or my feet on them. That feels so real to me. So I'm curious what you think about putting, like, you know, the concept touch grass. It's like,
Hmm.
you know, putting your hands in the earth can bring you to a place of like, what is real? Well, this is real,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And so what's the question?
So the question is like, do you think that we can reconnect with what's real by touching something?
Oh, well, wow, that opens up the whole thing of
Right.
like of sensation, right? Like the value of sensation.
Yeah.
It's huge. Yes, I do, in fact. Um, One of the things that I am in the creation stage around is related to that is the part where pleasure is a pathway to healing. And using our senses is critical for being human, essentially, and for healing and for connection. Um, and all of the ways that we have been desensitized, sometimes on purpose through overexposure, and sometimes unconsciously and just habitually over time, we have less and less of our actual attention available. So bringing your like working with clients in somatic experiencing, like bringing your attention back into your awareness that you are breathing or that your heart is beating, or even it's a somewhat advanced skill for interoception to like actually be able to feel your organ of your heart beating without putting your hand there. um, that creates a level of coherence that is ultimately, whoa, these words are just coming to me, like ultimately in coherence with the entire universe. Is like sensation is the mechanism of how the energy moves, or the energy moving is the mechanism of sensation. It's like it goes both ways. So, yes, it's incredibly profound sensation.
Hmm.
And in somatic experiencing, visualization actually, using your senses, the visual field is one of our senses, and it's a really big part of our brain. So it has the most power within our ability to shift our state, to use either internal imagery or to actually use your eyes to look around and like floss your ocular nerve by just looking into the corners and connecting with the vagus nerve when you turn your body. It's an accessible reset, and yeah, it just is incredible. So one of the things I'm working on is this pleasure pathway around both self-love and reconnection with your innate powers, and your own ability to like know your path, to have discernment.
Yeah, I love that. That's going to be really potent because I have to tell you, last year I was diagnosed with dysautonomia and POTS.
Mm-hmm.
And what I am like doing so much better today from I did a lot of things and I've talked about some of them here on the podcast, but one of the things that I that I think really, really helped, and I give credit to my functional nutrition doctor who, helped me with this, but was a lot of visual cueing of
Yeah,
like near and far to sense
yeah,
safety, to calm the nervous system. So talking about that visual sensation and the
yeah,
visual cues. But then something else I notice is with my phone, like if I'm looking at something and if I'm moving, there's a visual thing that happens that makes me feel very, I don't know, this isn't like,
yeah. I know what you're talking about.
yeah, it's like it's not the real word, I guess, but it's like it makes me feel very uneasy and dysautonomia, like whenever I'm trying to like walk and look at my phone, it's like I've
Yes.
really learned I just cannot look at my phone if I'm doing anything else.
Yes, right. I'm so glad you brought this up. I don't know that much about dysautonomia, but we have a combination of, did you know that myopia in young adults, like under 20 years old, has gone up by 30%? It's actually, sorry, predicted to go up by 30% because of the distance at which most people are looking. And we need to be looking at the horizon and in the distances all the time. It's actually one way that you can just automatically calm your nervous system, is to just look in the distance. But what's fascinating to me about that is like your eye shape will literally change based on your environment. So, yeah, myopia is the inability to see close up because the shape of your eye has stretched. So our bodies are not only, doing this to look forward to our screens, but our
Right.
eyes are doing it too. And so there's that. There's like the physiology, the shape of your body that has an effect on your ability to orient, to proprioception, and what's going on around you. But then I think I had a chronic illness for intensely for a year and a half after I had shingles. I had a central nervous system response that also gave me chronic fatigue, and I had to reorient the vestibular nerves as because of the amount of time that I was laying down and also not moving and going outside. So your actual ability to kind of calibrate what is around you, um, is really important. So I think one of the things that we should be practicing with our phones is never looking and walking, because especially for those of us who are having nerve issues and sensory issues, or have had any chronic fatigue or chronic pain because of what's happening in the nerve signals, is it's just too much for our body to actually do that. And the amount of attention that you have to give your screen to look at something really small would never happen in normal life, unless you were, it's essentially some sort of fight or flight response to hyper focus like
Exactly.
that.
Yep. Exactly.
And so you can't be hyper focusing and also orienting, right? Because orienting is in the social nervous system, and it's like both things can't happen at once. So, in order to get there, you have to reorient. You literally have to reorient your body to bring the social nervous system back online. So, like walking through the house, I'm just always telling my child, like, you cannot carry that thing around like it's a baby. Like, you're reading your iPad, yes, but you have to put it down when you get up and go somewhere. And
Hmm.
absolutely, you cannot bring it into your room and you cannot bring it into the bathroom because, those are the places that we get stuck in that type of visual distancing.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So for
So
all the people who are pooping and watching TikTok, get off. Get
don't,
off.
yeah, the practice, like, first there's the practice of like putting it to bed and not taking it in your bedroom, but
Yeah.
also, like, you've probably seen that research shows that, like, if you're actually on the toilet for longer than 15 minutes or something, you're more likely to have hemorrhoids and all types of digestive
Oh, yeah,
issues.
yeah.
Yeah, it's
But
not good for
you know
us.
what's so phenomenal about this is I know it sounds maybe like we're really getting into this nitty-gritty of like, look at your phone this way, not like this, and here's
Uh,
more rules you have to follow. But like also there's this other piece to it that's like all these things are very simple, very easy, like looking up and out and about. I mean, I tell almost all my clients about that. It's like if you work in an office and you're sitting at a computer, like look up, out, and out every 20 minutes
yeah.
because it's going to help your whole nervous system function better.
Yeah,
And it
because
would
research
be,
shows actually that our body needs to move about every 20
yes,
minutes.
yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and that's like fascial research too. Like our
Mm-hmm.
fascia begins to add
Mm-hmm.
in like more connective tissue in places that your body's like, you're all hunched over and
Yeah,
your body's like, alert, alert, send signals.
exactly.
And
Exactly.
so it's like these things are still pretty simple. They're still pretty easy, and you actually can have autonomy and control within yourself if you just
Mm-hmm.
like
Mm-hmm.
adopt some of these like small principles. And
Yeah,
I don't want to like minimize what we all have, all these little things that we have to do. So I know this is like another thing to do, but I also feel like we have so much nervous system, like nervous system work,
yeah,
whatever. It's just there's a lot of simplicity to it and profound things happen when we do these simple things. There's like whenever I teach my group class of somatics and I have women come in and we're all doing somatics together and we're all moving our bodies together, like
yeah.
it's simple, but it is profound.
Yeah, it is exactly. And I mean, that's also nature and the body and how physiology works, or how different aspects of hormones work, or all of the little chains of effect that are all interacting together inside of the multiple systems in our body. The idea that there's like multiple concerts playing at once, and when one gets off, note, it has an effect over here. If there's one thing that I wish everybody could take time to understand and absorb, it would be that when we're not responding to our body, like, for example, just taking a simple break, it compounds over time throughout a day, throughout the weeks and months and years, to a message of stress. And so it's
Yep.
not just like one thing that you're doing, it's actually all the ways that you're not responding to your internal systems, necessary signals that it's sending to you.
Yep. And if you're listening to this and you're one of the people who come to my group class, you know that I always say before every single class, please listen to your body cues. If you have to go to the bathroom, please go do it. If you need to
Yeah,
step out, it's sending more reinforcement to your body that you're listening.
And I also want to say it makes total sense that we are here in the place where we have to learn these things that, on the one hand, seem sort of rudimentary and so simple, and also are very challenging because
Yeah,
behavior, like, Moshe Feldenkrais talks about like how behavior gets formed. Like, you don't, as I understand it, is you don't even have to have done the thing. You only have to know how to do the thing for you to do it that way. And so undoing a behavior that becomes very quickly, like you didn't even have a muscle memory to know, like, oh, this is how you, for example, write a check. Like, it's not something that's innate, like you know what to put where and how to do it, but somebody told you how to do it. And that's all that you need for that behavior pathway to be created. It
hmm
takes a lot more energy to undo the behaviors than it does to just, sort of simply be told how to do it as reference
yeah,
for later. So it makes total sense that we're here. And also think about the other ways that we learn how to live in these bodies. There aren't very many other ways that we have been taught, or there's spaces for learning how to be in these bodies. And this is
absolutely.
this is our time. It's why like somatics is everywhere. It's because
hmm
it's largely been ignored, and now we're in a bit of a crisis around our
Yeah,
bodies. Yeah.
yep, yep. And I think all of the technology in some ways is bringing us back to our bodies. It's part
No,
of
that's fascinating. Yeah.
it's
Hmm.
also like what I was saying in the very beginning of this conversation is like no part of my soul wants to make an Instagram post to get someone to buy my widget. And it's because I'm like moving, it's like I've been so immersed in it so that now I like I have to move back to the body. I have to move back to the earth. I have to move back to the sensory
Yes.
experience.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's part of the great turning that we're in. I think,
Yeah.
some of what is happening is the earth is evolving and our systems need to evolve and are the ways that we do things need to evolve and that we need to have a big reckoning with the parts where
Yeah.
we've just been able to ignore that, or even the parts of us that have learned apathy, like you mentioned. Like,
Yeah.
you have a lot of emotions around the earth, but if it feels like you can't actually take an action around climate change, then it's another sort of thing that we kind of put to the side, and those
hmm
emotions are still living in our bodies. So we need
Yeah.
to find ways to be working more with the earth and visiting the trees and having
Yeah.
more of those natural cycles.
Yeah. This was absolutely lovely, Laura. I really enjoyed where this all went
Yeah.
today.
We never know where it's going to
Yeah,
go, but it was great.
yeah, and we still have a whole list of things we could talk about the next time you want to
Totally.
join.
Yeah.
So,
Sounds good.
um, so for everyone listening, we will also put all of the contact information for Laura if you want to work with her in the show notes. Laura, do you have anything coming up you want to share with people?
I'm excited. I'm going to be offering actually a nervous system 101 course for like working with resilience and avoiding burnout for climate activists in California. And I am developing some courses, and I do have space for online one-on-one somatic experiencing clients if people are interested in working virtually.
Yeah, I love that. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me today and enjoy.
Thanks, you too. Bye.
Bye.